Guys, welcome back. It's Jen with Happy Humble Home, and today we're going to be doing a garden video for 2025. But before we jump into that video, be sure to go ahead and click subscribe if you haven't already, or if you're already clicked subscribe, make sure you have that little notification bell on so that way you get notified of all the adventures that we have here on Happy Humble Home. All right, y'all, let's get into the garden for 2025. Alright guys, so today we're going to talk a little bit about, actually first we're just going to go ahead and tell you what we have already planted in the garden, because obviously we have stuff already planted here. So if you watch my channel long enough, you know that I end up trying something different every year, it feels like, or tweaking things. Well, this year we're going to try our hand at growing some pole beans. So that's what we have, 2 rows here that have this trellis system set up for pole beans. And currently everything has been in the ground for probably about 2 weeks, maybe thereabout, and everything seems to be growing really good. We are going to do this one row here that is just regular bush beans, but so far we have a lot more pole beans popping up than we do bush beans. I think I have like 2 or 3 bush beans in this entire row when I planted about 30 to 40, I think, so many seeds I had left. So I did just use seeds that I had from last year, so don't know if that's going to be a factor. We're going to wing it and see. But my Kentucky, these are the Kentucky pole beans. Kentucky, is it Kentucky Mountain? Something like that. Pole bean is what these are. And then these, the bush beans, are just the basic, I think, Blue Lake bush beans. And then we have 2 rows of our tomatoes here. These are just basic Better Boy tomatoes that we got at Greenway Nursery, a local nursery. And then, surprisingly enough, these 2 rows don't have anything planted in them yet, because I'm going to save part of these will be for, like, if I wanted to do any kind of fall harvest, for like maybe some type of lettuce or broccoli or something like that that I didn't get in the ground earlier before it got too warm. We're going to see if I can try to get them in the ground in the fall. So these are kind of reserved. I don't have any peppers this year, which is that's usually something I grow, but I may end up getting 1 pepper plant, but it's just not something we eat a whole lot of. But I don't know, we'll see. We may end up throwing 1 in the ground before it gets too late. And then in this row right here, you can see it's, I don't know, I'll zoom in more with my camera later, but this whole row right here is onions, just basic white onions. So they're popping up really good. And then, so like I said, we're always trying something different. This very first row out here is my taters. Every year I've done taters in buckets, but this year I wanted to try something a little different. I want to see if we would be able to get a better harvest if I put them in the ground versus the buckets. So we're playing around with it. Now, I will say this. We ended up getting everything for the garden tilled up and planted around mid-April, which is definitely a lot later than what I typically plant my taters in buckets. Like, I'll put those in the buckets probably like late February, early March. So, and they've done pretty well. I came out here this morning, and today's the first day in about 2 weeks that I've seen any signs of taters, because I was really afraid. Sorry if the wind's in the mic, I'm trying not to. I was really afraid that my taters was not going to grow, but I'll zoom in here in a minute. But I see definitely like 5 or 6 little taters, and I'm very excited about that because we do eat a lot of taters, and I'm hoping that we're going to just play around with different methods to earth up kind of as they go and not take up as much space, and hopefully instead of making it go wide and up, we'll just be able to kind of keep it smaller but going up at the same time. That's going to kind of be our hope. We'll see how that works out. Like I said, if y'all have been on the channel long enough, you know I just kind of wing everything. Also, y'all know I've had 0 luck with my carrots. Although I take that back. The very first year I tried the carrots in the raised bed, I did have one plant that did really well that I ended up saving some seeds from because it was a 2-year plant, so it went to flower. It ended up going to flower, and I did save some seeds. So I don't know if y'all remember last year, just along the outside edge of the garden last year, I just put seeds down. I honestly forgot about them because they was never popping up, at least not during the garden season. And then when we went to till this up this year for the first time, I seen a couple little carrots that we had tilled up. And I have one carrot plant that's growing along the edge of the garden that I need to mark off, so that way we make sure we don't hit it with the mower and all. But apparently, I don't know, I've gotten like 1 or 2 carrots ever, and I've kind of given up at this point until I can figure out something else. So again, y'all, I feel like it's a hot mess every year as far as trial and error, trying something different, tweaking things. But that's the part of it. Hopefully this year we made it better where my the garden will drain a little better, and just be able to stay on top of keeping the weeds out and between the rows and all. And then also what we did too was, if y'all remember, I had a whole bunch of compost built up that was probably about 2 years worth of compost. So earlier in the video you seen where we had tilled the garden, and then there was part of it had compost laid on it, and we was tilling that in as well. So the garden has a whole bunch of compost that was tilled in with it before we planted anything. I went ahead and for my tomatoes last year, Tara from Doll's Barefoot Farm told me to try to put down eggshells in front of the tomato, or when I planted my tomatoes, so that way it would do like a slow release calcium to keep from blossom end rot. That worked really well last year. I ended up doing that same thing this year. Plus, on my compost, I could see a lot of eggshells that had not fully decomposed. So hopefully everything is decomposing really nicely, and having that extra compost will hopefully give the garden a little boost this year. But now we're going to move on to something else, because I'm actually going to finish planting something that I haven't planted yet. We are going to plant some garlic real quick. Okay, guys, so try to get closer. All right, guys, so if y'all remember a couple years ago, I grew some garlic, and I actually have dried and braided it, and it's been hanging in my pantry for a couple years, and I've actually been able to still use it. Well, this is my very last head of garlic, so we're gonna just plant it and see what happens, because last time that I planted garlic, it was kind of like over winter was what I was trying to do. And y'all, I had a little okra seed in my hand, and I think I just dropped it. That's okay. I'll end up going back and getting another one. It did. It just rolled right out of my hand. But anyways, back to the garlic. That was really random, y'all. Sorry. So we're gonna go ahead and plant my garlic, because you can see here, like this little piece of garlic, it's already starting to sprout off really well. Sorry, I hope the wind's not bothering too much. So, and ironically, that was the last shape. That was the last bulb. They kind of had an extra bulb on the side, which is that. So I don't really know how well this is going to work. Like I said, this is garlic that I've had dried for quite some time. So we'll see how good. Some of the cloves may not be any good for planting. That may be the only one I get, and that's okay if that's what happens, because I was just curious to see, because some of my cloves have definitely dried up. You can see some of the cloves there have really dried up, so that one's, I'm not even going to try to plant that one. I may just kind of throw them in the garden and just let them compost in. That one has 2. Let's see here. So it's just like unwrapping a little present, honestly, y'all, at this point. Is what it feels like. That one's kind of got a little bit of a root started. It's not a very big bulb by any means, but it does have a root started. So we're going to go ahead and try to throw that in the ground too and see what happens. And same with this one. I'm not going to lie, y'all, that's like a pretty sad looking garlic bulb. But you know what? Again, I'm all about trying to figure stuff out and see if it actually works or not when it's not the most ideal situation. So that, and then I also have like these little bitty ones that are starting to sprout too. So we're going to go with it and we're going to wing it. So let's see, where did my shovel go that I did not bring over here? My goodness, there's like a lot of these little bitty ones. All right, well, cool. We're gonna get more than I thought we would off this bulb. I'm not gonna complain because I do use garlic a fair amount, and having it braided and hanging in my pantry has worked really well. I'll just go over there, cut off a braid. If you haven't seen my braiding garlic video, I will link it in the video or at the description or at the end or somewhere with the video. I will link you directly to that video. So we're going to try to plant, that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to try to plant 8 and see. One of them I really don't think is going to take, but he'll be our first little one, or he'll be the one closest here to the end, so that way we can remember which one he is. Let me go grab my shovel. Okay, so this is where I left our last little garlic, and like I said, there's about 8 pieces of garlic here. Some of them I'm really not so sure about, but we're going to test and see. All right, so there's that one. So I'm going to leave a pretty good amount of space for my okra because every year, they've really gotten pretty big. And like I said, y'all, I don't seed start these. I never have. The very first year I grew okra, I just bought an okra plant from the nursery. And yeah, we have the okra planted there. The very first year that we brought okra, I bought a seed from the Greenway nursery, or a plant from the Greenway nursery, and then I've just saved seeds since then. And last year I put one in the ground just to see what would happen, and it grew fine. It was not as big, and it ended up taking a little longer for me to have okra, but we ended up having okra when most everybody didn't have okra because we would start it later in the season. So we're just gonna kind of wing it again and see if this one comes up. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, last year we ended up getting the garden in more of like May time frame. So we was about 2 weeks earlier. We was right around the last frost date for Tennessee, for West Tennessee, what's typically the last frost date. So that's kind of where we was at with it. And so far, everything seems to be doing really well, except for my bush beans. But now I'm going to bring y'all in for a little closer look at our garden for 2025, and then that will wrap it up. So our bush beans, or sorry, not the bush beans, the pole beans are doing pretty good. We have some on that row, as well as there's some, and then they're definitely popping up here a little bit more. And then we're going to come over here to like our one little lonely, sorry y'all, my shadow's all in the way, one little lonely bush bean. But earlier I did, when I was rocking this row, I did see a bush bean that was coming up. And then all of our tomatoes look pretty good. These were the 2 rows that didn't have anything on it, except for this one, obviously, is the one I planted at the very end down there. And then you see all these onions, like the entire row of onions has already started to pop up. And then I'll show y'all, I have to find it as I walk. My little taters. So there's a couple. We have one peeking on this side. And then there was another one where there's like 3 or 4 together. I probably walked past it. But yeah, they're kind of peeking their little way up as well. So hopefully we'll have some. And then right here is my carrot. You can see it accidentally got mowed down, but there is still, it's still there, y'all. You can see it kind of got mowed down a little bit. I need to put stakes around it just so that way we don't hit it with the mower or the weed eater. But yeah, it was definitely had more green on it. And that is the only carrot that I've seen popping up through here. So yeah, apparently carrots can grow. I don't know what's up. And then over here, y'all, we have a plethora of blackberry bushes that have started to grow out. I have cleaned out a lot, and I was kind of afraid that I had cleaned it out a little bit late, but you can see we have some starting to bud. We have lots of blooms starting. We have lots of plants that have taken root all back in there, back there. I think we ended up starting with these two big, more mature ones, and you can kind of see down here how like good and sturdy and thick they are. So, and then they've taken root over here, over there, along the fence. So pretty much this whole little back corner has now become a big blackberry bush. So hopefully they will do well, and we'll be able to. All right, guys, so that wraps up the back garden for 2025. And as always, if y'all have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them in the comment section below, and I will check in with y'all later. Have a good one.